Hey everybody, so I'm Tomer, Wieingertner, co-founder and CEO at SentinelOne. Really proud being here today, being obviously Israeli, and telling you a little bit about what we do, but mostly about what we're actually seeing across some of the most critical, most important companies out there today. So you all heard about digitization and what it actually means, but it really is about more and more data being housed in pretty much every place that you can think of. Data today is housed everywhere. We as consumers are accessing data in a complete new way. The way we consume data, see data, and take data and use data is very, very different. And obviously the way that we go about it is always through the devices that we use. Mobile phones, laptops, desktops, and computers in general. That generates massive, massive amounts of data, and it also changes the way that enterprises are actually storing that data. And we're now seeing really at that wild, wild west era, enterprises that are now moving at scale all of their data centers on-prem and onto the cloud, which is really where all of our data is being stored and everywhere that we want to build protection into to actually store that data. So services, applications, workloads, compute power, everything is really moving into the cloud. So data is becoming everywhere. Parameters are changing completely. The notion of the network is ever expanding. And there's really a new way, a new model that's required to really think about how can you secure all of these transactions. At the same time, and given that vast attack surface, attackers really have automated their attack methodologies. We all talk about, in the defense industry, about using machine learning and using AI, using more and more advanced techniques to try and defend in a more effective way. But the adversaries are not resting as well. They're using the same tools sometimes to automate a lot of their attacks. So they're becoming more scaled, more sophisticated, and they target more and more enterprises and the attack footprint. We talked about WannaCry, we talked about NotPetya. The other thing that was incredibly interesting about those attacks were that they were completely automated. They touched one device on one company's network and immediately spread throughout the entire enterprise at machine speed. If you're trying to use humans, if you're trying to analyze what's happening while those attacks are occurring, you're always one step too late. You're always behind where the attackers are actually moving, what they're actually doing, and what the code is doing while it's spreading. So how do you really deal with attacks that move at machine speed? Definitely not with humans. If we look at the cybersecurity industry, just in the US, there's a huge shortage in cybersecurity talent, in analysts, and people that actually are needed to monitor all of these different systems. So it's incredibly hard today to filter through, to sift through all of these bodies of data that are existing in all of our networks and where we need to find the attacker in that needle of a haystack type of mode. So what do you want? How do you solve that? And I think that if we want to think about cybersecurity as not just another issue, it's actually more of a scalability issue. It's not just a problem that we need to solve, it's a problem that we need to solve at scale. How do we deal with all the data that we have today? How do we build systems that allow us to be more flexible, more scalable in how we go through that data and find the attacker? And using real-time security that's based in AI, empowering the machine to actually take decisions in real time across large scales, large body scales of data, and again, doing it in a complete autonomous manner. No human involved, just letting a system analyze data in real time and react to attacks, reacting to attacks to prevent them, reacting to attacks to fix deficiencies, reacting to attacks to remediate machines, and once again, in a complete autonomous manner. So how do you actually do that? I mean, is this just a dream, or is this a model that we can actually use to protect enterprises at scale? And when you kind of look at that attack surface that everybody here talked about, it's the IoT devices, the endpoints, the classic endpoints, the workloads in the cloud, services that we use, all of that, that's kind of our new network. And your first way of trying to deal with scalable issues is actually trying to monitor that network in the most seamless way that you can. Because another issue in cybersecurity is the complexity. We've heard so many different vectors of attacks. We've heard so many different approaches. But at the end of the day, it also creates huge, huge complexities in how you can actually defend any given enterprise. So the ability to deploy software that's incredibly flexible to monitor every type of asset that you have in the network, that's your first key to trying to unlock those mountains of data, export them out, and sift through them in cloud scale. So who's actually using this? Is this a real thing? I mean, okay, so we've extracted the data, we're monitoring every device, we're seeing everything across the network, the endpoint, the cloud, IoT, everything, all of it together. Now what do? So, we take these bodies of data, you apply AI on top of them, use machine learning to find the anomalies, you find the anomalies, the machine reacts in real time, there's no human involved. Sounds kind of dangerous. Sometimes it's completely in real time. How do you make sure you don't shut down something critical? How do you make sure that everything you do is incredibly accurate? That's kind of the strength of the machine. But it needs then people to trust that machine, to trust that system, to trust that platform, to actually manage a complete enterprise at scale with an AI brain with no human is involved. So is someone deploying these types of systems. So I'm really proud to say that some of the most largest and critical enterprises in the world, including 3 of the Fortune 10, I'm talking about the largest enterprise, the largest energy company in the world, the largest telco in the world, the largest healthcare provider in the world that are deploying these systems end to end, and they're protecting every device across every asset, wall to wall, in these enterprises. Those enterprises, they sometimes house our most critical data across every service that we consume from them. And we're incredibly proud to supply security to most of these organizations out there. One word about us. We were just selected as the fastest growing company in Silicon Valley. We're an Israeli company. Actually, our R&D is in this building across 3 different floors. We've been selected to be 3 times Gartner Visionaries across endpoint protection, which is probably one of the most important Magic Quadrants in cybersecurity. And lastly, we've been ranked number 14 across the entire US in the Forbes AI list for AI innovation. So that's pretty much what I have for you today. We have about 3,500 customers globally, 500 people, $230 million raised, a little bit more to come along later this year. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Thanks, everybody. Really appreciate your time today.